Welcome to this week's episode of Sports in 3 Minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schreiner. This week we will be continuing to look at NCAA March Madness. And I bet there's some people out there like me this week that just look at their brackets, just rip them up, throw them away, because they're just garbage now. Let's look at this weekend's action of games. Starting with the South region, we have Florida versus UCLA. UCLA is led by Kyle Anderson and Zach Levine, who are coming off of winning the Pac-12 tournament. But they are playing Florida, who has been regarded as the best team in the country all year, led by SEC Player of the Year, Will Bekins, who has not, even though he's faced people like the Harrison brothers of Kentucky, he has not faced anyone like Kyle Anderson this year. But I still think Florida has too much to go against UCLA and will have the defense to stop them. And I have Florida going on to the Elite Eight. Looking at the other Sweet 16 matchup, you have two upset picks in Dayton and Stanford, who've upset teams like Ohio State, Syracuse, and Kansas. And I think Dayton's going to be too much for Stanford, who has beaten better teams than Stanford has in the tournament, and will move on to the Elite Eight against Florida. Now, to make this short, looking at the Elite Eight game, Dayton does not have anything that could go against Florida. Florida will easily move on to the Final Four with a crushing defeat over Dayton. Now looking at the East bracket, you have possibly the best Sweet 16 matchup in Virginia versus Michigan State. In my opinion, Michigan State just has too much for Virginia to handle, and Michigan State will move on to the Elite Eight. Now looking at the other Sweet 16 matchup in Iowa State versus Connecticut. Connecticut is led by Shabazz Napier going against DeAndre Kane and Melvin Ejim. I see UConn's run ending up short this year against Iowa State, and Iowa State will move on to the Elite Eight. Now looking at Michigan State versus Iowa State in the Elite Eight, which was my prediction before the tournament, I still believe Iowa State doesn't have enough to go against Tom Izzo, Adrian Payne, Gary Harris of Michigan State. Now looking at the West region, we have Arizona versus San Diego State. Arizona is led by Nick Johnson and Aaron Gordon, going against San Diego State and their tough defense led by Thames. I don't think that defense is going to be enough to go against Arizona this year, and they will move on to the Elite Eight. Now look at another interesting matchup, Baylor versus Wisconsin. Baylor took down my Final Four pick of Creighton in the last round, and I think Baylor will take out Wisconsin this round too. Baylor is led by Corey Jefferson and Isaiah Austin, and that is two big men Wisconsin can't go against. Now looking at that Elite Eight matchup, I just believe Arizona has too much speed for Baylor and will just move on to the Final Four. Now looking at the Midwest bracket, you have Kentucky going against Louisville. Kentucky was preseason number one to start the year, and they are finally showing they have the talent to be called number one in the country. But I believe they'll fail to realize their potential in going against Louisville, led by Russ Smith, and Pitino will outsmart Calipari and lead them to the Elite Eight. Now looking at the bottom matchup, probably the least appealing matchup of the weekend other than Dayton and Stanford, you have Tennessee going against Michigan. In honest opinion, I don't really think either one of these teams are that great and have a serious contention of making it to the Final Four. I'm going to predict Michigan goes over Tennessee just because they have the best player in the matchup in Nick Stauskas. I believe Michigan doesn't have anything to go against Louisville and Russ Smith, and Louisville will make an easy run to the Final Four. Well, that looks like all the time we have this week. Join me next week on another edition of Sports in 3 Minutes.